What's up, everybody? I am back with a new comic book review. Sorry, it's been a while since I did my Batman Night's Fall review, but because the Nightfall trilogy is like so extensive that each one takes such a long time just to try to get through it. And my main issue with this stuff is that they could have been truncated a lot better, especially this volume two, where it's more so centered around John Paul Valley as Batman in Gotham, while Bruce Wayne is off doing his own thing, uh, overseas, trying to, still recoup little by little and gain his uh, motion in his body again. And then, uh, yeah, this is what I've been carrying on while the stuff that I was telling you about in the previous volume was carrying on. Uh, a second here. Oh, and I'll be talking about it right here and now. Actually, I'm saying like last volume. Sorry, it's just these are two parts of the same volume. One is called Crusade, where we're mostly following the John Paul Valley, but the first thing we'll be tackling is part one of volume two, which is called The Search, where Bruce Wayne is trying to find uh, uh, the doctor lady. I'm blanking on her name. 1 second here. Okay, so Knightquest, The Search. Now, uh, we're gonna have a few guest characters popping up at the beginning of this. It's just probably just fun little cameos here. Um, while Bruce Wayne and Alfred is picking up the trail of one of the kidnappers who kidnapped not only the doctor who's treating Bruce, but also Tim Drake's father. And they was mostly looking to get her, but Tim Drake's or Jack Drake's, so I think that's his name, was just happened to be there, and they just can't just he took him as an extra hostage, in a sense. So Bruce discovered from like follicles or something from a left behind mask that the person wearing it was treated for different types of like inoculations, because when you go to certain countries you got to get shots to prevent from getting certain diseases or whatever like that. The trail leads to the fact that, oh, this guy must come from Santa Prisca, so that's where he and Alfred went. Now, Catwoman was on the freaking plane with them in the first volume. We don't see her here. You would think like she would have been on the plane, but I guess she got dropped off somewhere. Uh, but Bruce ends up recruiting other DC heroes like Bronze Tiger, the superhero lady named Gypsy, that's what she was called at that time, and later on Green Arrow. Because little by little, he starts going through his physical therapy. So you start off in this story in a wheelchair, but little by little, as he's trying to work through, trying to be a little bit more mobile, he then begins to walk with a cane, which he retrofitted to use as like not only a bludgeoning weapon, but also it's tricked out like Daredevil's billy club almost, but not to the same extent. You got the like some knockout gas, and knockout darts, and all this other stuff. But he can't do everything as of yet. So he hires, because he make a comment about like they're smart enough to realize I'm more than this whole playboy persona. So they might not know at this point in time that Bruce Wayne is Batman. You would think maybe Green Arrow probably know, but in any case, they help out in order to try to rescue Killsinger. I think that's her name. So Bruce Wayne plays the fool, but he just hires him on and prevents clearly an assassination attempt on him, because he's been snooping. Oh, and by the way, I'm gonna have to push back the reaction video for Destiny 2 to another day, because I'm gonna be doing this right now, because it has been taking a while. So I want to get this done so I can get right into reading up on Knight's End to wrap up the Nightfall trilogy. So it turns out this this skinny guy who was running things, I forgot his doggone name. I've been going through this as much as I can. I keep forgetting certain people's name. But eventually gives it like he has a name. I'll come across it eventually. Kin solving. That's her name. Kin solving. So the leader here is trying to get her to cooperate. If not, he will hurt Drake in order to get her to do as he says. All the while, Bronze Tiger and Gypsy try to break into their hideout. Of course, like here's Green Arrow trying to assist. It's a cool art depiction of Green Arrow here, I gotta say. So Gypsy using her, camouflage powers or something like that, in order to cause a distraction by setting fire to the place, so Green Arrow and Bronze Tiger can pick them off. And they nearly succeed, but given the fact that she's a doctor, she doesn't want to leave Drake in the hands of these maniacs, so she ends up going with them, because Drake is still not 100%, and he's under her care. So technically Bronze Tiger failed at his mission while the bad guys end up getting away. And the trail eventually leads to London, where Bruce meets up as Batman, meets up with the local hero there. I don't want to call him the Red Hood. They call him something here. Never seen this guy in my entire history of reading comics. This is the first time actually. They call him the Hood or something like that. And this is kind of fun. This moment reminds me of the Harley Quinn series episode where after Bruce gets hurt and he sees this Batgirl running around and he pretends like he's like still like he's still active, but he's kind of leaning on a cane on the side, so trying to pull up a facade. Clearly he's not all there yet. So this is what he does in a sense where he's seemingly like just standing there all mysterious and everything like that, requesting this guy's aid to break into MI6 because the information on the main bad guy, it seems to be what do you call it? What the military does when they black out certain information in documents. Redacted. A lot of information seems to be redacted by MI6, the British government. So he gets this guy to break in and get the specific information for him. And since he looks up to Batman and everything like that, it's like, oh yeah, sure, I'll help you out, no problem. And of course, as he dips away, Batman the whole entire time was just leaning on the pole. Didn't even notice until like they showed it. It was very clever. It was like clearly he's just like, I'm putting up a front here. But then him and Alfred had to rush out because he knows like he might circle back. So you better like get me out of here, get me out of this costume so we can act like I just disappeared. So ask Benedict. That was the main bad guy's name. And it turns out that Kinsolving is the adopted sister to the Benedict family. And that's those two connection. And this is kind of weird, and I want to say weird, but more quick than I was comfortable with reading this. And I'm not sure how many other people who read Knightquest and might feel the same way. But Bruce sitting there reminiscing about all his past relationships, and he wants to put Kinsolving in that same category as like Talia and Catwoman and Silver St. Cloud and Poison Ivy. I don't even remember him actually having like a thing with Poison Ivy. But in any case, it's like, really? You know this woman for what? At max a month? While she was treating you, and all of a sudden you kind of fall head over heels. I guess it's like the whole Florence Nightingale situation, because she definitely was feeling him, but I think she was more in love with the whole mysterious billionaire thing. But like Talia, and of course at this point in time, he doesn't have a thing with Catwoman yet. He's familiar with her, but they don't. Unlike this day and age, they don't know each other that intimately yet to count. But it's like Talia is more so like, outside of Catwoman, Talia is the only one that probably come even close to be like ideal woman for you, because those two are the only two women that knows throughout mainly me, because you can say like Vicky Vale, but that's only in the movie. Very rarely they actually make it apparent that she might know who Batman is, because you see in the Arkham games, every time Vicky Vale shows up, there was no like indication that uh, she knows Bruce Wayne's Batman or anything of this sort. So they rarely even do that outside of that one movie. So yeah, it's just Talia and Catwoman is the only two women that knows Bruce and Batman, at the same time, intimately, both sides, and you know, falls heads over heels with both of the personas, as the fall in love with the man as a whole. Uh, Kim Sully doesn't know anything like that, nor is Silver St. Cloud. At least I don't know. I don't know Silver St. Cloud like that. I'm familiar she was a love interest, but I probably read one thing she was in when I was younger. I do not, I don't have, nobody really utilized Silver St. Cloud all that often. I think even in the Gotham TV show, she was utilized maybe once. And like I said, like maybe more people have read a lot more with Silver St. Cloud, but you can let me know in the comments below that if she knows about Bruce Wayne and Batman or just Batman. Because I could have sworn she just know about Batman. But he was like falling so hard for this Kinsolving woman. It's like, dude, you don't know her like that for you to just be swooning like that. I think this part was so rushed that it does not. You're trying to give him some kind of reason to go this hard to look for this woman. It couldn't just be enough that, oh, she was under my I was under her care, but she was on my grounds and under my protection still, and she got kidnapped on my watch. That should be more than enough for him to go overseas to try to find her, because Bruce would have done that with anybody he was like looking after, or at least was in his orbit. But you gotta put a hat on a hat. We're trying to like, oh, there's deep love I have for her. It's like, that is kind of like quick. That it's like does not make any sense. And in terms of Kinsolving and her stepbrother or adopted brother, have these they're metahumans essentially. She is a healer while he can amplify the ability in a sense. And what Asp is trying to do is weaponize it and utilizing these gadgets or something like that to, every time she uses it, one of his goons picks up the frequency and kind of transfer it into like these gadgets. Is technological hogwash, but you roll with it because obviously they're going to use it for nefarious purpose. While in England, Bruce picks up Bruce takes up a disguise, because he always got certain disguises whenever he is trying to get some dirt in the daylight without doing the whole Batman thing. So he is portraying this aristocrat named Sir Hemmingford Grey. And he helps these, mass creeps who is trying to save these animals from being chased down by these rich people, because they're on like those like, hunts with their beagle dogs, those things. I can't recall the actual name of it, but they're like kind of like those animal rights type of people. One of those masked people is actually the Hood, who is trying to, do good, you know, outside of the costume as well as in the costume. But uh, he seemingly recognized, or at least what Alfred's worried about, is seemingly being recognized by this guy, because after the Hood got the info from MI6 and delivered it to what he thought was Batman, but he was pretty quick and realized, oh, you're not really Batman, because, because I don't know, you can say like, oh, he's like just, he idolized Batman so much he knows like, like how the swagger of Batman. And so he yanked off the mask, and Alfred put on an act because he's like a thespian and everything like that. And so he put on this kind of fake, I want to say fake. I mean, I'm pretty sure he knows the dialect of a Cockney accent and act like, doughy and ignorant. Uh, Saying like, oh well, like I was hired to like do this, by a mysterious man, and ooh, I was like, oh, so you working with Batman? Oh no, cool, no, it's okay, man. Like like any friend of like Batman's is cool with me, things like that, and that sort. So uh, they find where Asp is living, and Bruce pretends like, oh, I'm Mr. Gray. I used to live here in my youth. I'm just, feeling a little nostalgic, and, want to, you know, go look around and everything like that of the old place. And of course, uh, Asp seemingly falls for it, where it's like, I'm planning on having like a ball tonight. Like, I don't think it's the right time, but he eventually caves and it's like, look, I'll give you an invitation so you can just come swing by as a guest. But lo and behold, Bruce leaves behind a one of those like sound gadgets so you can spy on everybody, because he knows this guy is up to no good, and he has to have Kinsolving and Drake near him. So the house is the obvious choice. So, but he needs to have hard evidence before he really starts to pounce. And it also turns out that there's these shady spooks that in the and on the surface works for MI6, but underneath, secretly, they're doing their own thing. It's kind of like on some shady business, and it's like hiring this guy to weaponize this his sister's powers in order to use it to their benefit, and they're paying Asp to do all this. And unfortunately, when he messes with that power, he ends up utilizing it to kill people in a certain radius. He corrupts, his sister's power, and it causes like a, like I'm not sure about like the radius exactly, but it's like let's say it's like a short little town, and everybody dropped dead. It was like that serious. Luckily, the Hood and, well, I don't even know how it works, because like he didn't exactly point and aim, even though he could. He was using it as a demonstration, and somehow, maybe because his henchmen and guests in the house and the government spooks, somehow like they're out, they wasn't affected, but like I guess the town over or whatever just like got, murked. But luckily Alfred and the hood was outside of the radius, so they weren't affected. Okay, got like 9, files of slides, so bear with me here. Of course, Bruce is just like overjoyed that he hasn't lost uh, Alfred in this whole entire mess. Of course, he ends up bumping into Kinsolving, and of course, thanks to her brother's mental powers, he kind of, while she was still kind of exhausted from, being forced to use her powers, on a massive scale, she, was too out of it to like fight back and get her. And he got her to tell her like, "Oh, I don't know you, sir. Leave me alone." And of course, it's kind of dumb of Bruce. It's like, first of all, like, why would you like right in front of the obvious bad guy? It's like, it's me, Sandra. Don't you know me? And it's like, and then he starts believing she must be working with this dude. Now, it's not not unheard of for people to lean that kind of thought, but he would have at least do more digging to see. But I guess he's just so in love, he's just so heartbroken and betrayed that he's just willing to buy the fact that she's just like, dude, you like, how many times have you been stupid like Talia al Ghul, knowing full well she was all in on most of Ra's al Ghul's world domination plans, and yet you still have feelings for this woman. It's like unbelievable. I mean, be hurt all you want, but it's like, at least, like, of course he does do some more digging, but he was just like, she needs to be brought to justice. She's just another criminal. It's like, bro. But anyway, the hood shows up, tries to help, but he ends up getting kind of ambushed by Benedict's goons. He sets off like a flare gun, which he hopes gets the attention of Batman, who he assumes is nearby. And of course, Bruce does technically shows up, utilizing his trick cane. He knocks out a lot of the goons. He goes into the hideout, finds Drake still alive and got some help. So that part is, at least solved. So he doesn't have to worry about that guy. But now he got to get to Kinsolving. So yeah, Alfred's perfectly fine. And this is the last time we see the hood. I mean, he makes sure he handled things on this front and with all these people, because this part is like probably like like kind of like horrendous and like jaw dropping, like the level of death on this one. So while in London, as Bruce Wayne this time, getting looked over by the local doctor there, or nearby doctor, the doctor is just kind of like completely like beside himself. Was like, dude, like, you're supposed to be like getting treatment, but you seem to be like moving more than you should be doing, and you seem to be more active, you're kind of making the situation worse. I advise you to go to the hospital now, and maybe you might make it. But you kept seemingly pushing. I don't know what you're doing, but you seem to be pushing yourself more than you probably should be doing, which doesn't make any sense. Because I don't know what you could be doing that is making the situation worse. Of course, Bruce being Bruce, he's going to take it under advisement, but he has a mission to do, and he's not going to stop until that part is accomplished, even despite his physical ailment. And of course, Sandra tried to escape, but that doesn't work, obviously. And of course, Bruce tried to contact Robin to get more information, and that's where they find out about the adoption. But Benedict sends goons to a hotel where, Mr. Gray has checked in at, hoping to just kind of neutralize him for good. But because I can't remember, was this before or after? Because it seemingly I think it was before. He tried to utilize his sister's power, twisted it so he can, because he put it in this kind of a cerebral type of helmet thing, to try to focus it on this one person. And he's trying to find Mr. Gray and just psychically kill him. It's kind of like Death Note. If you've ever watched that anime, it's killing from a distance using some type of apparatus. And normally it worked because they used it. They end up using it later. But that's probably why it makes Bruce's body worse, because while Benedict thinks he's going to be killing Gray, but Gray is is just a facade. Bruce just gets just weaker, and he says to Alfred, "God, it feels like." And it's a weird thing to say, because no one would ever say this. It's about a disguise. It's it feels like Gray just died. I was like, who says that? Who actually used those words? I don't know. It feels like at best it should be worded I don't know. It feels like something just happened to Gray, but it doesn't make any sense because Gray is my persona. But I feel weak right now. That would probably be a little bit more of a proper way to say all that. It sounds like it's like if you're in a play as Pocahontas, and and some other person who really is named Pocahontas, or at least somebody thinks that you really are Pocahontas, and somehow set out psychically to kill you, and then God, something's wrong because Jenny feels so weak, and it feels like somebody killed Pocahontas. It's weird. Nobody says that. Anyway, they Alfred and Bruce go to visit Sandra's living adoptive mother, and according to her about the her upbringing, and turns out she was adopted by this racist dude who on the surface seems like the good Samaritan neighborhood preacher, but he actually beat Sandra, and ironically, Benedict was the only one who really loved her and looked after her and tried to protect her, but the father ends up like knocking him out, and the mom explains that, oh, he always wanted to feel like, better than other people. He clearly was racist, and Bruce and Alfred is just mortified and asks, like, why didn't you stop him? Why didn't you do anything about it? And she says, well, that's not that sort of thing, Wise would do at that time. There's one thing to being the dutiful wife, and there's another thing where it's like, okay, that goes out the window when literal harm is being done. That's even if, because, if you're ascribing to religious kind of values and everything like that, that goes out the window. It's like God, the father and the mother and the children, all that kind of goes out the window when the father steps out of bounds, when he's literally being racist and potentially doing severe damage to the kid. And it's like, okay, that kind of like, you kind of throw all that kind of traditional stuff out the window when you go into that realm. That's just my opinion. And I think a lot of decent religious folks would agree that, okay, all that kind of crap goes out the window when one of the parents is stepping out of the bounds like that. And so this is when they discover their powers and utilize it to kill the father on the spot. So you essentially give him a heart attack. Like I said, it's kind of like Death Note in a way. But then Benedict turned that power in present day. Benedict turned that power on to the mom. It's like, oh, she's just as guilty as Dex. She let all that kind of stuff happen to us when we were children. So he messing with his own sister's mind at this point, and it's like convincing her like she deserves to die. Do it. And then right in front of Bruce and Alfred, she has a heart attack. Oh yeah, here's the whole thing with like the gray persona seemingly dying, but unlike with his mom, he doesn't feel like the job was accomplished because he gets some kind of feedback or something. But then he ends up going to the hospital in order to, get treated and everything like that, because it's getting worse because of the whole incident with that gray persona seemingly dying. And of course, the doctor is saying like, okay, you got to remain in bed. Yeah, we need to operate, because surgery. We need to like run some tests essentially. So you cannot leave this bed. And of course, he immediately tries to leave, and Alfred just chastises him, and it's like, no, I went along with you so far, but at this point, you are deliberately disobeying a direct order from your physician who says you will kill over. You will stay in this bed, because if not, I'm not going to go along with this anymore. And it's not like the first time you actually see some like a story where Alfred is kind of had it up to here with Bruce Wayne's BS, where he's too doggone stubborn to acknowledge the fact that he will literally kill over if he keeps pushing further than he needs to do. So he ends up like just going home while Bruce stays behind to finish the mission. As a matter of fact, he ends up going back to the mansion because he talked to Tim not too long ago, and Tim brings up the fact that, okay, John Paul is taking things too far. He's getting out of hand. I didn't want to worry you and Bruce, because you trusted the mantle to this guy. You think I try to believe that Bruce knew best, but something is off with this dude. And of course, Alfred picked this up immediately, but he still wants Bruce to be looked after. So he kind of hires John Paul and placate to his like sensibilities of like, if you really wanted to be the Batman, would Batman let somebody die on his watch? So essentially like get John Paul to be like a guardian angel essentially, because while Bruce was in Gotham, making his way back to Gotham under trying to lure essentially Benedict out, but Benedict pulled a fast one, tricking John Paul into attacking some dude on the harbor, but it's all like a fake out, while they end up kidnapping Gray. Okay. Bruce / Gray ends up in the Caribbean during like a massive like rainstorm. And because Benedict is, kept messing with Kinsolving's mind, she's starting to, I don't know, just for some weird reason, reverting to like a childlike state. I mean, she pops back in and out of that, but by the end of this little arc, she just kind of, reverts to that. I'm just going to cut to the chase on that part. But, get the slides working. Of course, Benedict after he perfected the machine, he then put out like a broadcast. This is while he was in, Bruce was in Gotham for a tidbit. It was like, put it out on news channels. It's like I'm holding like basically the world at ransom. Like I will kill like the leaders of each country, starting with DC, if my needs are not met, blah, 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 blah. So this is where like the whole thing with John Paul Valley and everything that comes into play. But first things first, he needs to deal with personal business. And at this point, Bruce kind of got over his little hump about, Sandra is working with this guy and everything like that. He kind of let that part go. And of course, Benedict bugged the room that these two are in, and it pretty much, full on let out the fact that he not only is Bruce Wayne, is also Batman. So it's like, I gotta kill this guy. But they managed to temporarily overpower both Benedict and his last henchman. But the storm is getting so crazy, it's starting to destroy the entire shack they're in. And Sandra ends up using her powers to kill her own brother. And then with her last bit of cognizance, she heals Bruce fully. Don't know why you never, like, maybe because the brother kind of boosted her abilities, quite a bit. Because I was thinking, like, okay, why didn't you, if you had this kind of power, why don't you use that from the jump to heal Bruce when he was like fractured and everything like that? But maybe because her powers wasn't like boosted to such a high degree. But she used the last bit of her power to heal Bruce, so now he's like fully, 100% at this point. But now she kind of like has like a childlike mind, and thanks to after the storm, only Bruce and Sandra was only survivors, so nobody's gonna tell his secret. It's almost like a sad ending to this character, but at the same time, I still feel nothing. It's not. She didn't leave much of an impact, and that's the biggest deal. Because because this volume, even though it's kind of like a two-parter, my biggest criticism is the fact that we're, as I'll get to in a few minutes, is just inundated with a lot of useless stories and just what do you call those? You're taking up page real estate with useless stuff, and that's why it took me so long. I'm trying to like use slides where I just talk about like the essential stuff, but here and there I'll address certain tidbits that I didn't think was all that useful. But it just, if they kind of update or do some kind of remaster of the Nightfall trilogy, I would highly suggest they would, shorten it to the bare essential stuff. It'll still be long, like a decently long story, but heighten the crucial stuff like kin solving. If you want to make this potential romance, have some meat on its bones, take out a lot of useless stuff, that comes into the Crusade story arc, and like utilize some page real estate to, have like these two know each other from the jump, but he never had to utilize kin solving for medical reasons before until after Bane broke his back, and they already had like a little fling in the past, but then it all sparks back up again and rekindles some old stuff, things of that sort, and give her a bit of more personality. She seems such a bland character. That's why I was like, it's sad, but at the same time, I'm just glad she's just out of the picture. She does not rise. She doesn't even rise to the same level as somebody like Vicky Vale. That's how like bottom of the barrel of a love interest she is. That is just pitiful of a character. I really do not care for her, honestly. It's just like she's just like a tool that is needed to get Bruce back on his feet. I mean, she could have just had that kind of power from the jump or something or other. That way, what happened to her at the end of this, where she kind of lost her mental faculties, it'll have more weight and impact as a reader. So, Tim and Bruce meet up at the airport waiting on Jack to get off the plane. And Tim is just sitting there contemplating whether or not to tell Bruce about John Paul Valley, while Bruce is carrying on like he's just like, you know what? John Paul seems like a proper candidate. I don't see the need for me to go back to being Batman. I can just live a normal life. Of course, Tim eventually tells him like, no. But of course he's waiting and like, no, I want to make sure, well, first and foremost, my father is okay. Get him on the plane, get him situated. Then I'll tell Bruce. Was everything, all that is out the way, I'm going to tell him. And of course he does. And now just like Bruce is like, what the hell? Why didn't you tell me earlier? So now they have to break in because, Jean-Paul kind of sealed up, most of the entrance to the Batcave. Eventually he just seals it all up until there's only one particular entrance there he comes in and out of. And of course, Bruce tries to get him to stop, but Jean-Paul is like, F that, I'm Batman now. You gave that up. So, I'm running the show. And because here we see his little outfit is upgraded to like a cartoonist level. Because clearly they was trying to sell action figures. So all these spiky, just, spiky military Iron Man type of suit with a cape. And we'll see how that was built up by the end of this. But Bruce is clearly like not, able to like take on like just like a battle tank, essentially. So now we're gonna be carrying on to which is a good start to this arc, honestly, where it's like, how did this happen? How did he get this? He took the bat suit and corrupted it, essentially. How did we get to this point? And so essentially we flashback to John Paul's time while he was in Gotham, take care of some stuff while Bruce was overseas, him trying to deal with the crime in Gotham. We see these two like cowboy idiots trying to rob places that eventually work for some kind of mob boss. There's a lot of useless criminals here. Some are important, others are not. These are kind of guys, and there'll be another trio that just seem like just cannon fodder in a sense. They don't really leave much of an impact outside of somebody that shows how far along Jean Paul goes in terms of dishing out punishment. But it's like, God, they're just like useless criminals, honestly. It would have been more impactful that he actually, I'm not saying like, because when it comes to like here's the thing. I think you have a lot of Batman rogues gallery that you could have utilized to show that, oh, this particular Batman is going very hard.
Phrasing?
Meaning that, because little by little, people are starting to catch on. Even the villains are starting to catch on. This ain't Batman. I don't know who this is, but he's not carrying on as Batman would. And the police all assume, like Montoya is like, maybe something happened after his fight with Bane, and it must have changed him somehow. But Alfred and Tim, they know. And of course, Jean Paul just won't. Is still messed up in the head, and you got the whole thing with the system implanted by the Saint Dumas, and then he also got images of his father as Azrael vying for dominance, trying to push him outside of, because all that stuff wrangled with the tutelage of Batman is just corrupted him in ways that nobody's foreseen. And it's a shame because Bruce was trying to hopefully circumvent that corruption by the system by maybe, trying to do what he did with like Tim Drake and Jason Todd, where it's like, okay, clearly they would have gone down the wrong path, and he would have just been another criminal I had to fight later on, like his father. Maybe I can just like imbue my morals and teachings in order to get him, like kind of like aim it in a sense. It's kind of like try to do what, if you ever watched the TV show Dexter, trying to do what Dexter's father did, where it's like, okay, clearly this kid's going to grow up to be some kind of serial killer. That's probably going to happen. That's, at least 8 times out of 10, that's probably going to be the future. But what I can do is at least curve that in a way where it's like I can aim it, where he can just kill just bad people. So that way he will do what he does, but it won't be at innocent people. And that's essentially what hopefully Batman was trying to do. But that is just all that stuff. His brain was more twisted than he anticipated. In any case, John Paul eventually finds this old railway that was abandoned by Bruce because he had this, not bat train, but for the sake of the argument, it's called bat train, where it's like a Batmobile, but with wheels meant for a train track, where it goes faster than the Batmobile and gets him to places a lot quicker without the needless traffic. But because I guess the active other train systems that seem to Bruce maybe too dangerous and not useful in the long run. So John Paul, however, no, I need to be able to get there quicker, because that's what the whole point with these upgrades to the suit, where it's like he does not want to do any detective work. He doesn't want no partner. He barely wants to work with the police. He eventually tolerates the police, and then eventually tolerates doing the detective work. He'd rather not do it. He's like, okay, I gotta protect the city. They, criminals gotta go down, but I'm not gonna be doing any kind of useless, learning how to use a freaking batarang. It's like, I'm gonna make a gauntlet so I can shoot the batarangs accurately faster in order to take these guys down without me having to actually learn how to throw it, accurately, or even do the whole stupid grapnel gun. I can just have a grapple on my wrist and to catapult me into the air and all the other stuff. And this train car is no different, where it's like, okay, I can just get there without having to worry about useless traffic, or and get there twice the time. But of course, he comes to realize why it was abandoned, because you might run into other trains. But he doesn't care. Robin, however, is trying to hopefully try to get John Paul to his senses. But this dude literally that system starts taking over, and he starts fighting Robin and nearly choked him to death until he kind of came to his senses. Robin eventually just up and disappears. It's like, okay, this dude, I cannot reason with this guy. Clearly it was a mistake giving him this mantle. And it's like, I'm thinking, okay, Bruce is overseas. Call the freaking Titans. Call Nightwing. Get them down here, because if you can't do this yourself, clearly all y'all are trained superheroes, more so than this guy, and you can easily take this guy down and put a stop to him. It's just duh. even if he doesn't know the Titans at this point in time, which I doubt, because I'm pretty sure he does. You know Nightwing, and Nightwing is familiar with all the other superheroes and can call them up. Maybe not Superman, because he was in a healing coma at this point in time after his fight with Doomsday. But he called Wonder Woman, Flash, Green Lantern, anybody. Not sure which Green Lantern. I'm pretty sure Hal Jordan might have been dealing with the whole situation with Coast City, or at least the aftermath of the whole Coast City destruction. So maybe Kyle Rayner, because he would have been the Green Lantern around this time or coming up soon. But like, you have a myriad of superheroes you can call up to deal with this. All right. So now we're coming up to some useless stories here and there, like Robin, dealing with like Clue Master, and of course he has his own Robin car. He just got his license and everything like that. So he kind of like managed to sneak that out of the Batcave before, John Paul completely sealed it up from him and anybody else who might know. Because honestly, like, this is one of the things they could have taken out. Because, like, I get he wanted to see Robin deal with some stuff on his end without, while still worried about what's going on with John Paul Valley. I just did not care. At the very least, it could have gotten like a better villain for him to deal with. So it's kind of like a useless story, in my opinion. Then John Paul just getting more brutal when dealing with the criminal element, which is starting to worry a lot of people. Eventually, by the end of this story, a lot of ordinary citizens got a lot more scared of Batman as of late, because the way he leaves behind the criminals so broken and bloody and darn near on death's door. Now, dealing with this like one-off villain, not even going to be bothered to try to bring up a name. He's just some kind of villain who has like a grudge against these mob bosses who used his mother, because his late father wasn't dead, and when he died, she ended up inheriting his debt, and they keep coming to collect. That's what he's called, the collector. So he's going after all those mob bosses that went after his mom and caused her and his little sister to delete themselves. So while that is going on, Jean Paul goes into this kind of like water tank coffin thing to try to again, see what's going on in his head. And with what's going on, he can't sit there and have that going on in his head while he's in the throes of trying to deal with the city, and it keeps popping up at inopportune times. He's trying to figure all that out. And a couple of goons end up finding out his little hideaway, but he was already up, stuffed them into that tank, and then the collectors, follows them because they're working with one of the people he's going after. So he ends up killing these guys. Yeah, here's a little background here. Because honestly, I do not care for these. Like, it's just like useless, or at least waste of real estate pages. You could easily take this out. We could just fully like concentrated on like just Jean Paul escalating uh with just maybe a few like this collecting dude. Like, you sure you can have characters like that, or just hold on. Sorry about that. Had to, you know, take care of some stuff in the house really quick. Anyway, where was I? Yeah, I don't know how you go about doing it because, there's other smarter writers than I. But from my reading of this could have been taken out. I don't care. There's another story about this, Mexican immigrant. Useless. Take it out. I mean, like, we can mainly just focus on, uh, it just, either normal muggers or the well-known villains. John Paul Valley is just little by little brutalizing and putting innocent people in danger. And that should just been that. Because other than that, this is this useless time that we. This could have been like maybe one-off stories, and you can probably do more with it, like some kind of Batman Elseworlds story with like these like villains. Because honestly, I don't know. I doubt you're trying to do like a Harley Quinn thing and trying to make these guys like big deals, but they're not. It's like I don't know. There's something unique about. There's a way to do it, but in overall grand scheme of things, they're kind of useless. It's a wasted space. Like Harley Quinn had like a dedicated episode for her. She has a dedicated comic where she was the center of her introduction and where she's the primary focus. John Paul Valley is the primary focus, and he shouldn't be sharing space outside of the main Batman supporting cast. No new people. It's like even like someone like another new favorite DC character of mine, Godspeed. He has like a Flash, which I covered on my YouTube channel. So check out what was my first Flash story that I did on the channel, where it's the introduction of Godspeed, and in DC Rebirth of Flash. And he has like a story arc just dedicated to him. He doesn't have like a thing where you gotta share screen time with an overarching person that we're primarily focusing on. Our attention is focused on that. Would make anybody else seems kind of superfluous. I kind of like beating a dead horse, but you get what I'm driving at. So like John Paul eventually like stopped this guy, and to such a harsh degree where he's like left mangled. So this is like the whole his mind and all that implants and stuff as a child is starting to like really influence him, because like he's trying to do his thing as Batman, but that system implanted by say Dumas, and then is the subliminal messaging of by his father, all that stuff rolling around is going around is kind of really messing him up. It's too much going on, and clearly he's just like, because God, I can't remember the last time, because he's Azrael now. He's technically part of the Bat family. And he seems straight now, but the last time John Paul Valley Azrael was utilized was in this DC story arc that was kind of boring. It was years ago, called Odyssey or something like that, where a lot of DC characters was going in space trying to deal with some kind of thing with Darkseid or something or other. It was very boring. I quit after the first couple of issues. It was so boring. But that was the last time I remember reading anything with Azrael in it. So now another useless kind of story where one of these mobsters, it's like, John Paul Valley Batman trying to get him like as a kind of like a snitch or informant, whereas like you can feed him information. But he's like, okay, I ain't having that. So he ends up hiring this RoboCop type hitman who's uh, worked for the a guy who worked for the government and pretty much went under the same thing other people go through with let's say he's like one of those higher ups, but unlike the grunts, he subjected himself to subliminal messaging and not too dissimilar to, so I guess it's not that uh useless of a story. This could have been probably just kept, whereas like something like I guess these so-called villains that jump off Valley is dealing with kind of like mirror images of himself in a way. It could have been done better, kind of like the way the Batman roles, Bruce Wayne's roles is a mirror image of him, but whatever. uh this guy subjected himself voluntarily to uh be like the perfect hitman. uh so he just like, I got a mission, I get paid, I got a mission, I get paid, that kind of thing. Follow the mission so you can get paid, kind of thing. Macros or something like that is his name. It's a stupid costume, honestly. Sometimes the costumes back in like the you know 80s into the 90s were kind of dumb action figures. Every once in a while they're cool looking, but it's just like every once in a while on the flip side, you get dumb costumes like this. This is just like a dumb RoboCop. So he goes to kill the guy that was trying to kill the guy who hired him. Then he goes after Batman. And of course, uh, in trying to snipe Batman, John Paul dodges in the nick of time, takes out the guy who hired him, and in his escape, he tries to collect via uh, the associates. But then the other governmental spies, it's like, okay, we can't let this guy get caught because what we're doing should be under the radar and not, it should have been like shut down long ago, but we're still using it. We'll get in trouble, that kind of thing. One of the guys who goes to get sent there gets murked by Mekros. Like halfway through. So Mekros ends up taking out those guys who refuse to pay. And of course, John Paul Valley just lets that happen. Doesn't so this is the kind of stuff we want to see when dealing with Knightquest, where it's like how John Paul Valley just escalates, where he's not even doing, because he feels like, I'm a better Batman, but I don't need to do things as Bruce would have done. I want to do things my way. And he doesn't feel the need to like swoop in and negative time to prevent this RoboCop ripoff from killing a bunch of people. Despite them being criminals themselves, Batman would not allow that. But he does not care. They're scum and they deserve what they get kind of attitude. This is like that, Shades here is one of those, agents that's trying to like keep things quiet, but he ends up getting taken out. The fight between Macross and Jean Paul Valley escalates down to the street, into a supermarket, into a freezer, and it ends up, taking, Jump On ends up taking this guy down. Then we see those cowboys shows up again. They're trying to hold up a train, trying to do a whole cowboy train robbery. I do find this hilarious here, where he actually tells one of the cowboys, like, draw. Or it's like he used like there's another line he used. There's a new sheriff in town. I was like, you just kind of had to do it. So I'm not too mad about the cowboy puns. So he takes down the twins and prevents the train robbery, and gives a call ahead to Gordon to stop their bosses while they're waiting on these cowboys to show up with the train full of money. Ken, looks like the holiday rolls around, and he's just like brooding on the buildings, thinking like, oh, this city is just worthless. This is filled with potential scum. This holiday's a lie. They're all pretending. But Montoya and Bullock ends up getting a guy frozen in ice, washed up on the shore. And given the dialogue here, it seems that, because Bullock makes some kind of comment about like Montoya, is going to have a hard time finding like a man in her life kind of thing. I think this is way before writers in DC landed on making Montoya a lesbian. Because I couldn't help but think like, wow, that's a weird crack to mention about a woman who's only into women. But then I had to really think, I was like, okay, this might have been just a little bit before they kind of settled on the fact that she's a lesbian. In terms of the guy in that block of ice was Mr. Freeze, somehow frozen in like a icy shell, probably from like a previous Batman encounter or something a long while ago. So now it turns into kind of like a horror film. He doesn't even know who he is. It's kind of, I guess, discombobulated. But he knows enough to shut off the power. So now there's one single mortician, and Montoya is just in the dark right now with one little light. And they're just walking around. And she faints when on the sight of this armored Batman. Of course, because he shows up because he heard gunshots from coming from Montoya. And they end up fighting, kind of I won't say crazed, but just out of it. Mr. Freeze doesn't know where he is at all. Lord knows how long he's been frozen. And of course, John Paul Batman ends up fighting him, subduing him. But he keeps on going. Montoya literally has to hold him up at gunpoint, which she mentions to Bullock later. It's like, that's the second time I had to put a gun on him just to get him to stop going overboard. There's something clearly wrong, and it had to do with something that after the whole ordeal with the whole Bane situation. Oh, here is like where Catwoman shows back up again. Still technically, this could have just been like a, I'm not sure when they started making runs with Catwoman as the main character, but this story could have just been like a Catwoman comic book. And this might have just been maybe like a tie-in or something. I'm not sure. But she shouldn't be involved in this kind of story. But I guess you have to put it in here. But this whole thing with this whole these animal rights save the rainforest type of hippies, uh, teaming up with Catwoman in order to, save like, the planet and, and the, the, like the animals and stuff like, those type of people. And Selena Kyle's, they don't know Selena Kyle is Catwoman, and Selena Kyle is, wearing like a blonde wig when she's amongst them, doing this whole Clark Kent Superman thing with these people. Once again, very boring, in my opinion. These guys are completely useless. Could have just, if you want to include Catwoman, that's fine. She could have just done her usual shtick where she's trying to rob a place and then bumps into Jump Off Valley, because she definitely picks up on the fact that you're not Batman. Because we had this whole cat and mouse or cat and bat play going on for a long time. So I know him, well enough to know the way he carries himself is very different from how you carry yourself. And I'm not even going to point out the fact about the whole costume change. That could have been just that. One single issue is more than enough. Or at least two max. This whole thing with this whole chemicals that she has to find because one of her friends is a scientist and was ordered to make this kind of chemical that is supposed to by these corporate goons that he really didn't want to do, but they're it's going to be part of some kind of deforestation thing. Of course, two of these goons, the one with their red headband and the one with the do-rag, turns out to be, working on their own to try to utilize the chemicals to for their own benefit, but they're complete idiots. It's like, why are you having a story like this? It's so pointless. I do not care. A lot of them are pretty much idiots, except like the black woman and of course Catwoman and the scientist. And there's one dopey kid with a tie-dye shirt, and it's like everything's like a video game to him. Like, people who was writing this at the time clearly do not understand how probably kids, actually communicate during the 90s. Because clearly they probably didn't even have any kids. They're just doing guesswork. Because I was like maybe like a, toddler, maybe 5 or 6 at the time when this was probably coming out. So I'm not too familiar with how like teenagers of that time would have talked. I was pretty much went on utilized TV shows to give me, context clues. But even then, they still talk like, normal people, not just, cliche one-liners. It's like, oh, it's like this one video game that does this, like swoosh and bam. And it's like some corny crap like that. No, matter of fact, let me give you the proper context here. This is like I was like, and I hear you got this laser and rockets and this knife that's like 10 feet long and a sword. Dweezil's and Dweezil? You couldn't give these people ordinary freaking names. Dweezil's talking like the bat's a video game, not a person. It's like, God, who talks? There's moments in a solid story here if they stick to like the core story, and all this other side BS just kind of like sucks the I won't say the joy, but the purpose of what is really overarching going on. So it turns out the chemical agent isn't dangerous until you mix it with this other chemical agent. So Selena goes to steal one of the canisters, and a benign one she want to use as like a kind of like a bait and switch kind of thing. And that's where like I actually own this comic, as a matter of fact. Is this one particular issue. Kind of wish it at the time I knew the whole full context of what was going on, because you know only had that one particular issue is literally dead center in the middle of this entire story. Uh, and Gordon, or at least Jump Off Values is under the assumption that uh, she's a terrorist. Catwoman's a terrorist now because she's getting this chemical agent from whoever. And the Gordon is like, that's really not her MO. Her MO is like stealing like artifacts or jewels. She's essentially like a jewel thief in a way. It's, her being a terrorist isn't like her repertoire. And he thinks like he should know Catwoman well enough for that. And they're like, she must have changed or something like that. Jump Off Valley. Like I said, little by little, people are starting to pick up on the fact that this dude isn't Batman. This is some clown impersonating him, essentially. I'm glad they, a lot of these people, especially like the villains and Gordon, picking up on these clues, because it's like kind of obvious. And Gordon doesn't call him out on it until the very end of this volume. Okay, that's it with that. Here's where she tried to seduce him like usual, but she just had to get a good look at him, and she immediately knew. It's like, yeah, I just had to get a good look. It's like, yeah, you're not him. So I'm glad in that way they don't play, unlike in the previous volume, they don't, they're not writing these characters who should know Batman well enough to be like complete idiots, like, oh, everything's fine. I was like, no, clearly you're all smart enough and familiar enough to know this guy isn't who he says he is. So of course he goes on his merry chase with her. She ends up escaping and leaving like the canisters hidden away at a particular dock. But of course, Jump Off Valley is kind of smitten with her a little bit. It's like, oh, she moves so gracefully. I wonder if Bruce Wayne ever fell for her feminine wiles and things of that sort. Like, obvious, but I don't know. There's moments. This volume has its moments. Don't really particularly care for it. I think it's part like, I don't know what's gonna happen in detail in Night's End. I know what at the end Bruce Wayne will defeat Jump Off Valley, obviously, but I don't know the full context of Night's End. Hopefully, it's a whole lot better than this particular volume, because this one is so boring. Let's have its moments, but overall, I'm just. I won't say it's a slog to get through, because at least the art itself is keeping me invested, and there's moments that still keep me invested and on the hook. But every once in a while, I come across certain little story beats that could have been cut out altogether. It's padding out the volume unnecessarily. So she ends up getting away thanks to this, fancy technological collar, where it simulates to the cops like, oh, this is like some kind of creature outside, but it's just a cat with like a heightened voice modulator. And she tells the cops like, yeah, the canisters are in these docks over here. It's a shame that you just assume that I'm just like that evil. So these two idiots realize, okay, we need the doctor in order to make the other chemicals, so that way we can actually utilize it to, you know, because they want to utilize the poison because they're so far radical. They want to utilize the poison in order to kill, like, because it's supposed to be some kind of UN summit, and that's where they want to let off this gas. Of course, they end up getting stopped, and what the doctor ended up convincing them, end up making was tear gas because they are idiots. And that's where Batman, Jump Off Batman, and Catwoman ends up teaming up in order to save the doctor and stop those goons. And of course, as Catwoman making her escape, telling everybody, it's like, yeah, what she says exactly. You owe your lives to, ladies and gentlemen, the trade conference, all of you've been breathing in is simple tear gas. You owe your lives to a scientist whose ethics exceed your own. Please remember your present pain and fear. Next time you plan to murder an ecosystem, save the planet, and have a nice day. Oh, and by the way, they could have really more invested in Gordon's little arc here, because he's getting chewed out, and the pressure's put on him by the mayor, who, after getting saved by Bruce Wayne Batman in the first volume of Nightfall, he's so far invested in Batman, he doesn't pick up on the fact that this Batman is going too far, but he assumed that's the regular Batman, and it's like, give him whatever he wants. And now he's like completely abandoning the whole concept of law and order at this point, where he's giving Gordon grief. It's like, why aren't you acting more like Batman? You can put these and of course Gordon is like, okay, you're not acknowledging the fact that something's going on here, and we can't just go out like cowboys. We gotta operate within the law. We have a line that we can't cross. But he's just he's feeling pressure, and that in turn is putting more of a wedge between who he thinks is Batman, but starting to pick up the fact that he might not be Batman. Now we gotta deal with the Joker, who's back now, and and this part is the funniest part of this entire story, where he ends up kidnapping these movie producers because he wants to film this Batman film, and he want to really make it seem real, where he actually want to film on camera Batman's demise. And of course, one of the producers telling this dude who seems more all in, I was like, man, this seems like a good idea. This could make some real bank. And it's like, are you an idiot? This is the Joker. It's like, this is like, why would you buy into this stuff? I'm taking crazy pills. And of course, this lady is not contributing much. She's just like an airhead, pretty much. So Joker ends up sending goons dressed as classic movie characters. Like, first we got guys dressed up like Frankenstein, werewolf, or the Wolfman, and what I'm assuming is Phantom of the Opera, because I was thinking Dracula, but it looks more zombie-ish. So I don't know. It's like I was leaning towards the Phantom of the Opera, given the whole cape motif and stuff like that. And of course, he has a Joker kidnaps Fiscal and Ebert. If you don't know who those guys are, you can look it up. Where they were the most famous critics in movie history. Where every time a film comes out, they give a film a thumbs up, thumbs down kind of thing, or rating. And for the most part, they was pretty it's like a good like 80 to 90%. Like, people like really latch on to what they had to say. Of course, they weren't perfect. They gave a thumbs down to certain movies that is by this day and age would be considered critically acclaimed, and you would think like, wow, they must have been way off. They considered this like a thumbs down. They weren't always perfect, but I would say 80% of the time they would have been like a legit critics of films that by and large you would say like, yeah, they kind of spun on, that was pretty solid, or yeah, that was pretty kind of lame. So they critiquing Joker's film because he's sending Batman to fight all these goons and rescue this damsel who turns out to be like an actor herself. All the while, Jean Paul Batman is trying to like contemplate whether or not this city is worth saving, or it is the inhabitants. Like, there's still inhabitants here that are innocent people, but of course he's come disillusioned when he come across this woman who's acting so fake and not too concerned the fact that she's literally got hired by the Joker and has no type of morals about herself and considers just another job. Is like, it's a whole thing. He even Joker even goes back to the producer for more of a expense budget. It was really funny. We'll get there in a second. Then he sends another trio of goons, this time 80s classic characters like Leatherface, the Terminator, and RoboCop, but the dollar discount version. And he ends up saving the woman again, who he at first assumed it was Robin, but he was dressed as Robin. So he ends up tracking down this old movie studio where Joker is hiding out at. And of course, he ends up threatening the producer to give him more of a budget. He doesn't care about like his assistant or the other producer guy. It's like, but as soon as the gun's pointed at him, like, well, we could fit a little bit more money in. Okay. And it's like pretty much like an homage to a lot of classic films. There's one with like Psycho with like Bateman's mom. That was pretty funny. There's like a Godzilla set. That was pretty funny. There it is. And John, I love the expression of John Paul's face. Is like, okay, what is this crap? Because he never had to really deal with a legit villain, super villain like this. All the ones are pretty doggone serious. This one's kind of like, okay, this is like madness. Like, what the hell am I walking into? But then even Joker, which is just like Catwoman and Gordon, clearly knows Batman on such a level where it's like the way he fights and carries himself. It's like, it's not him. So this kind of pisses him off, but he's still gonna roll with it. This is where he finds out like, oh, this woman's clearly like an actress. Like, she's not like a normal innocent person. Because no wonder she constantly getting kidnapped by the Joker don't know why she was like such a the one hostage he keeps constantly having to rescue and keeps getting kidnapped. What was her point in all this? And it's like, oh, she was a hired actress. And then of course, Cisco and Ebert get shot by the Joker because they gave Joker's film 2 thumbs down. It was so like, dang, it was so funny. So he ends up going after Joker, and he ends up breaking both of Joker's arms, and the cops eventually show up and stop him for going any further because he was going to. Here's that other whole situation with the story with the Mexican immigrant and trying to find her baby that she tried to give up for adoption or some kind of get swindled from money. It's a whole thing, and it's like not handled well, but this is kind of like getting to John Paul's head where he's thinking about his mom and he's never really knew her. And what will she do in this situation? What him to do in this situation? So he ends up trying to help her find her baby, which involves some kind of smuggling ring, which eventually put a stop to and save the children. Not much, I really care about on that stuff. I mean, some of you might get more invested in the story. Honestly, not me. Like I said, it's another wasted page real estate. Then we get this whole other arc where John Paul Valley is going after this, cannibal who only kills and eats his relatives because he thinks he can absorb their essence to be stronger or some type of ritual, whole thing. And John Paul Batman ends up getting obsessed with trying to chase this guy down because he keeps alluding to him. And like I said, little by little, he advances his costume a bit. And this is the inner turmoil of the Saint Dumas system programming and the programming of his father just battling it out. And he's just, little by little, he's coming unglued. So it turns out there's this cousin that Arbiter, that's the villain of the week's name, the cannibal's name. He's going after his cousin who was an orphan because this guy ended up killing his folks, and he ends up there's a guy, another relative that's in prison named Henry, I think, ends up using Arbiter in order to get his wife killed, but he ends up in prison because some suspicion of a connection with Arbiter. It's a whole thing. There's like an extra layer to this kind of thing. Thanks to Leslie Tompkins, he managed to grow up and make something of himself, and now he wanted to give back by, and in this day and age, this will seem very weird and off-putting, where he wants to, fund a camping trip with the kids from the local orphanage. Now, this day and age, that would be very suspect. Like, no, and mind you, this dude was like the only adult there, and it's like there's no other type of chaperones or whatever. All of that seems so weird, but we were like, I want to say oblivious because there was still like crazy stuff happening at that time, or even way before the 90s. But that will not fly this day and age. There's like, especially if you, not saying like you can't do something like that for a shelter for orphanage, an orphanage full of kids. But to go to a camping trip by yourself instead of going to like a legit camping grounds where there's like a bunch of adults there to monitor the situation, make sure everything's on the up and up. That seems like that would not fly. God, it's like I can't help but think about that. It's like kind of gross. But there's a moment where like John Paul Valley has to utilize some detective work, even though he finds it super annoying. But it helps him lead on the trail to finding Arbiter, who ends up hijacking the school bus with Arbiter and the orphans. But John Paul Batman catches up and tries to stop this guy. But the vehicle, thanks to the snowstorm, the vehicle goes careening over the edge, and John Paul Batman has to save these kids and let Arbiter escape, which he stews about it for a while. But he knows it was the right thing, but at the same time, he's still bothered by it because the system wants him to just punish that person at all costs and block everything else out kind of situation. But, the whole Batman training of him, like, is telling him, like, okay, that clearly I can't do that. So he ends up saving those kids. Then instead of just continue on and just focus on this particular arc and be done with it, we get these little subtle breaks while Arbiter is, licking his wounds. We get this guy called the Corrosive Man that got put away by Bruce Wayne Batman a while back. He got his, corrosive powers from some kind of accident that he blames this one guy who's in the hospital because, for a brain tumor that he wants to take out. He chooses to make his escape, and he looked kind of like, if you ever watched the Venture Brothers, that knockoff version of Johnny Storm where he's just screaming because he's in bloody agony. It's like kind of looks like that outside of the whole screaming part. Then we meet this other character called Justice Peace. Or no, it's called Justice, not Justice Peace. It's like Joe Public. Kind of like a play on John Q. Public, where he got this metahuman power to siphon off the strength of another person or to heighten his strength. And he's kind of new at the game. And of course, he doesn't realize, Batman is not Batman, but he thinks like, oh, he is Batman, and hopefully he can teach me, ways of doing the superhero thing. But of course, like, John Paul tells him to piss off. But if it was not for, and by the way, if it wasn't for Joe informing Batman about the Corrosive Man and his origins and who he blames for the accident, he wouldn't know like how to defeat him and the motive and where he might be going. So then he decides that, okay, I need to upgrade my visor because fighting this guy caused the suit get eat through by acid. So I need to upgrade, do further updates to the armor to counteract something like that, make it stronger, and also the visor, so that way I don't have to make my way back to the Batcave to look up on the computer about these various criminals. I can just do it on the fly. But he utilized Joe in this particular situation to siphon off the Corrosive Man's powers taking it on himself temporarily, so uh, uh, Batman can knock him out and subdue him long enough for the cops to pick him up. Almost done. We're at the penultimate here. So he gives him that good old right cross. And he tells Joe, like, okay, thanks for the help, but get out of here. Don't do this because you're useless. You're in the way. It's not for you. Get out of here. Pretty much like, killing his superhero dreams right on the spot. This, the other relative that ends up, hiring a bunch of goons to find his find Arbiter. He utilizes his lawyer to put out a hit, essentially, which gets a couple of people on Arbiter's tail while John Paul is trying to find him, and he's keep getting interrupted by these other people. And here is the most useless part here, where this is the second time in this trilogy where the writers is trying to make, or at least maybe the artist is making these knockoff Three Stooges characters, where these guys have the persona of the Three Stooges, and actually has some dialogue here, while in the first volume, when Bane was following Batman into that warehouse when the lights are off, and he's beating up all these goons, these three goons that exactly look like the Three Stooges. Like, look, Three Stooges are fun, but I mean, you could have had just to be just regular goons. Don't know why you feel that you have to make them knock off Three Stooges, because they're not even funny. It'd be different if they was actually kind of funny. They're not even like the Three Stooges. They do Three Stooges antics without any context that makes them lame. Oh God, the less I talk about them, the better. They was grating, and it was like useless. But you also get this other guy who's is metahuman, named Ballistic, who was like a cop who gained powers after a fight with some other villain, some creature, something or other. So now he's got like this, pinkish hide, essentially, that makes him, mostly impervious to damage, or at least for a lot of particular damage. But he utilizes guns in order to, so he's pretty much like a gun for hire at this point. So now the hunt is on for Arbiter. So temporarily they, these two team up, Batman and crap. I keep blanking on his dog name. Just said it. The title's called Ballistic, but I keep wanting to call him Ballistic. Whatever. Anyway, doesn't really matter. These two team up because he want to get paid. But even though John Paul mentions, he constantly mentions how he doesn't like working with people, but he figures he needs the help on this particular one because he has info that he needs. They figure out that uh, uh, the people connected to Arbiter are ones that helped him escape the asylum. One of them runs this kind of, who's named Luxor, ironically, runs some kind of casino reminiscent to one of those kind of Luxor type of casinos. The Three Stooges shows up. They end up getting their ass kicked. I'm not even going to keep harping on them. But they end up killing the guy they was looking for. But they kind of realized, they were hired, and they followed the money trail to, at least they get word from one of the people, one of the Three Stooges, Larry, pretty much. And they realized got hired by the lawyer, who told them, not only paid the ballistic guy the money, because this Batman doesn't care, because regular Batman would not allow anybody to like get paid for this kind of thing or whatever, but he just needed a lead on Arbiter, or at least not get any more interference from anybody else, because Arbiter is, he says, like, Arbiter is mine. I don't want any other interference. So pay him so he can get off my off this case. Then he tells him, like, okay, call the cops on him so that way this lawyer can get arrested, as well as the other relative that's in prison to Arbiter can back off, essentially. So that way the primary focus on I have is on Arbiter. Then we got this could have been just one issue, honestly, where Lady Clayface and the second Clayface, who is called Preston Payne, comes to Gotham after leaving the city seemingly for good. Is starting to attack Batman. Turns out that after Arbiter escaped that off the train, he ends up finding the two Clayfaces cave home and kidnapped their child that they had together. Not sure how that was even feasible biologically, given the fact they're all just in and out clay. But they managed to birth a kid, which Arbiter kidnapped, left a note saying, like, I have a kid, take out Batman for me, I'll give your kid back, whatever. But they wasn't having that. Preston Payne isn't like your typical Clayface. He got like a clay-like appearance, but his powers come from, like, make him, because he gets weaker, and the only way he gets better if he absorbs the life force of somebody else, which is kind of lame. If you call himself Clayface, he's literally got a clay face, I guess. Whatever. It's so stupid. Poorly drawn people. Like, this part of the one part where it's actually like a poorly drawn comic, honestly. Because they wanted to live a life of solitude away from the city and from any kind of scorn and ridicule from ordinary people. But now they had to go back to the city in order to save their son, which I guess has Clayface powers, but can actually look normal. But as Preston is trying to get Arbiter for kidnapping his kid, the kid, who's probably like, I don't know, a couple of years old, tries to, at least definitely slightly old enough to walk a bit, tries to, form wings like his mom, clay wings like his mom, and of course he's still not strong enough. And Jump Off Valley Batman tries, went and saves the kid, but Preston still tries to fight him, but gets subdued. But thanks to that altercation, uh, Arbiter ends up kidnapping his cousin, who was supposed to be held in uh, police custody, or at least under police watch. But things, knowing he can't get him directly, he gets these two clay faces in order to disrupt things, in order to get him out, so that way he can get his hands on him. So now Arbiter is holding his cousin hostage, which he does end up killing under these kind of like jigsaw type of contraptions. We get this kind of interlude here, which I really like, where the Penguin is being interrogated by Gordon, who, upon the request, he only will speak with Gordon, because apparently Penguin has somebody kidnap his wife Sarah. And of course, Penguin's not giving it up easy, and this is like a back and forth. It could have been his own movie almost, or at least some kind of mini movie where, it's like those bottle episodes of certain TV shows where it's just like in this one room and nobody else but like a few characters, and it's really fun. Because it kind of reminds me, if you ever watched Brooklyn Nine-Nine, that bottle episode with Sterling K. Brown, that's one of my favorites. It's really good. It's kind of like that, where Penguin is hinting at the fact that Gordon getting the pressure, and this pressure is really at its peak, when now it's like his wife getting involved and the pressure on the mayor. He doesn't have any control over this new Batman. All this is like, getting under, Gordon's skin. And then now Penguin is pretty much like taunting at the fact, like, okay, like, and Gordon comes back at him like, you know this too. This isn't really like, Batman, because you're doing all this stuff with me because you can't do it with this Batman. Because the Batman we know would have done the tit for tat with you. And you worry that this Batman might cross a certain lines, and you might, take you down very violently. So you're scared. So you think like, okay, like you're not going to mess with him, but you figure you can mess with me, but I ain't playing that with you. So he drags Penguin out to the roof and really is considered like, tossing him off the edge until Sarah shows up, because John Paul Valley eventually found Sarah, and he didn't end up throwing Penguin off the roof, but that entire like sequence is very fun. The dialogue in there is really spot on. Do like the art, because I don't read much Penguin stuff with Penguin in the Batman comics. Every once in a while, like I pick it up because depending on how well it's done, it's fun. But the Golden Age Penguin is like really good because it's like the trick, umbrellas, and it's like the whole shtick. It's fun. Of course, like people are really leaning into the whole mob boss, Falcone type of Penguin, Don Corleone type of Penguin. And it's like, I don't know. I kind of like the Batman Returns, Danny DeVito type of Penguin. I like the animated series type of Penguin. I like the Batman TV series type of Penguin. Those are like my type of Penguins, not this crazy mob boss kind of stuff. Now we're dealing with another interlude. Couldn't just wrap up the whole Arbiter story from the jump and be done with it, but or at least handle these little one-off stuff first. But we get these two gun nuts, Gunhawk and Bunny, who obviously like are not only mercenaries, but obviously like the typical Republican, uh, you know, super into the Second Amendment type of villains, where they're hired to take out people. You can literally see in their little homestead where they got guns laid out everywhere. It's like wild. And they also probably hunters too. And they so into guns, they're just like, he literally got mags. Not the same like there aren't people who are into armaments and stuff like that. But what's kind of off-putting is people who take it to such an insane degree, like these characters, because there are probably people like that in the world. Whereas like you see this magazine where there's like gun convention where they're showing off this new kind of rail gun type of, like a minigun type of thing, and they want to steal it. I'm pretty sure you got enough money to actually buy it. Why you need to steal it? But I guess maybe it's not for sale. It's like a one of a kind type of thing. And once Jump Off Valley, Batman figures out who hired these mercenaries, he goes to find them, which was at this gun convention. All right, last slide. I'm trying to power through these because they're like I said, this is like a long. Because I'm trying to go over more than maybe like 2 hours, which is already at that marker. Would have been done sooner if like I didn't get interrupted earlier. Okay, now there's like 6 slides left. And it's funny, this would maybe crack up because it's like they're trying to rob a gun convention, but like you don't think the other people are already packing. They just look at it like, are you serious? But in the firefight, while trying to fight off Batman, Bunny gets wounded, and they have to make their escape. But then we go back to the whole thing with Arbiter, and like I said, he ends up killing his cousin, but he didn't eat him because Batman and Robin end up deducing that he is using a relative's old, bought out warehouse thing under a relative's name. And John Paul chased this guy down near this kind of smelting area and lets the guy, he's hanging on to dear life to the edge, and he falls into this vat and dies while he's like mentally, arguing with the Saint Dumas and his father. And of course, this really sets off Robin, which ducktails back into where we started at the beginning, where he's telling Bruce about what's been going on. And of course, this all comes circling back to Gordon, who had it up to here, and it's like, and he just has it out with him like, you're not Batman, because Batman never ever lets anybody dies on his watch, especially not on purpose. And of course, it's like, I am Batman. I'm better. It's like, so I'm glad Gordon, I'm shocked it took this long, but I'm glad Gordon is not an idiot because he's a detective. Clearly, this is not the Batman. This is a Batman. Somebody just, somehow just took the previous Batman's place at some point. And of course, well, this dude Gordon tried to like attack him. He John Paul sidesteps and nearly lets this dude topple over and catches him in time. It's like, see, I could have just let you fall right here and now, but like I said, like I'm a better Batman, blah blah blah. Uh, like, look, you need me to get this city under control, so let's not like cause any kind of friction between us, shall we? Then like we get back to the whole situation with uh, Gunhawk, who brings his wife to the hospital, orders everybody to like operate on her, which they do end up saving her life, but uh, Batman and Gunhawk end up tussling and severely hurt Gunhawk, but he's still alive long enough. He's still alive, but he has the strength enough to ask like how's his wife, and Montoya tells him like she's gonna pull through, which is probably the sweetest part of this entire arc. Like, it was all said and done, he does care deeply about his wife, and that is volume 2. That is Knightquest. Whew. That was a lot. But like I said, it's like I'm not a fan. Like I said, half of this is solid stuff. The other half is like so boring and pointless. And it was like, it's tough to try to, read through, honestly. Like I said, they could have truncated this a lot better. It's all useless filler. And I get it. You're trying to see, like, the escalation of John Paul Valley's, aggression and madness and things of that nature. But you can still pull that off in a shorter amount of reading time. At least cut it down by half. But that was Knightquest. Then the last will be, I'll be going over the last one, Night's End, where all that culminates into this big confrontation between Bruce Wayne and John Paul Valley. But if you have read Knightquest, let me know in the comments below what you think of this volume. Follow me in the links in the description below. Don't forget to like this channel, and I will see you guys. What time is it? Yeah, I'll pop in to play a little bit more Destiny later in a bit. But I will see you all soon. Take care. Have a pleasant weekend. Peace.